Today onwards we will be doing human physiology. Okay, this week what I will do is this week we'll keep the target of completing endocrine system, that is chemical control and coordination, and for the exam, that is breathing and exchange of gases. These two subunits I will complete, and in the plant physiology whatever the MCQs that we have to be practiced, that also we will complete. Okay, so by that next week we will go towards the complete human physiology, whichever is left over. All right, I already told to all of you in the last class, human physiology is one of the biggest subunit and where highest number of questions appear in the exam. Okay, so it is broadly divided into what volume? Okay, that one. Okay, okay. So what are the various concepts that we have to read here? What are the various concepts? One is breathing and exchange of gases, then circulation. So in the blood circulation, it is also very big unit. It is divided into blood and cardiovascular system. Circulation and cardiovascular system also we have to read, and we have to focus on the excretory system, then we have to focus on the muscular system, locomotion, we have to focus on the nervous system, and we have to focus on the chemical control and coordination, that is the endocrine system. Okay, so there are how many subunits are there? 6 subunits are there. Even if you take an average 2 questions from every subunit, average only you will get 12 questions from this topic. But endocrine system, circulation, you get more than 2 questions. So on average from this particular subunit we get 15 questions minimum. Hence this is one of the most important unit we should not skip under any circumstances. Alright, so now we are going to study our first subunit named as what? Endocrine system. Okay, I will explain very briefly from NCERT to the advanced level. I want every one of you to focus very correctly on this particular subunit. Okay, and the PPT contain valid information which you can use it while you are revising it. Okay, first I will explain little depth, then again we will come back to the simple NCERT level also. Alright, okay, focus all of you. Can any one of you give me the simple definition of the endocrine system? See, you all know very well, our brain is the one which control and coordinates every activity of the body. Suppose example, if I am speaking, you are listening, I want to lift my hand, I want to move anything, whatever the actions that are carried by my body, everything is under the control of nervous system. But nervous system cannot control all the activities directly. So most of the time nervous system take the help of endocrine system. Endocrine system is what actually it is about. Endocrine system is all about the type of glands which are releasing a specific hormones. Okay, so in a simple words we can say endocrine system include all the endocrine glands of the body and the type of the hormones that they produce. Okay, and you already read multiple times the simplest definitions, endocrine and exocrine glands. How can we define the word endocrine glands? Endo, what you use the word ductless, which means that every gland is going to release the hormone, but there is no pouch like structure, there is no bag like structure or pouch like structure to store that hormone. Correct na? It cannot store the hormone. Obviously, it has to see every hormone has to be released into the bloodstream. So once the hormone is released, it is directly released into the bloodstream because it cannot store. It do not have a bag or pouch or a sac like structure. That's why we use the word endocrine glands. Glands that pour their secretions directly into the bloodstream because they do not have any storage structures such as the ducts. That's why we call it as ductless glands. And exocrine glands, again what you have to understand, they are having a bag or a pouch or a duct. By that, instead of releasing directly into the blood circulation, first they can release into their lumen. Okay, lumen means inner surface. And it can store it, and whenever there is a requirement it is going to release it. You're getting? And mostly some glands are act like an endocrine and some glands are act like a exocrine. There are some hormones both can show the property of endo also, exo also, such as pancreas. We'll read it later. But some exclusively act like a endo, some exclusively act like a exo. Correct na? Again, most of the students think that endocrine system is restricted only towards a certain parts of the body. No, it's not like that. Endocrine system is present throughout the body. Can you see here? It started from the hypothalamus until the testes and ovaries. Everywhere endocrine system is dispersed, which means the hormones which are involved in the endocrine system, it will work on whole body, starting from hypothalamus towards the genital organs. So whether it is an endocrine gland or whether it is an exocrine gland, what is the ultimate function? Releasing of hormones. Whenever we are reading the plant physiology, we read very clearly. Hormones, what is the simple definition I have given? Hormones are nutritious or non-nutritious? Hormones are non-nutritious. Simple definition. Hormones are organic or inorganic? They are all organic. They are not inorganic. They are all organic, very large compounds. Right? Most importantly, all the hormones can act like what? Chemical messengers. Why we use the word chemical messengers? Because they are carrying the information from one area to the another area. That's why we call them as chemical messenger. I believe you all people remember what is the statement I told you. All the hormones releases at low concentration only. What I told you, friends, low the oxygen, then effectively it act on the root. From the shoot it will come to the root and it will act. Similarly, suppose example, if insulin released in the normal amount, glucose level will be controlled. If insulin become higher, it leads to hyperglycemia. Correct na? So any hormone wants to show their action, it has to be released at a very low concentration. In simple words, low the concentration, higher the activity, high the concentration, lower the activity. Very important. I believe you all people remember my statement. Any hormone wants to show their mechanism. What do they require? Receptors. Remember everyone, what do they require? Receptors. Receptor. Friends, what are receptors? How can you give the definition of a receptor? We read now multiple times, this is a plasma membrane, right? On the plasma membrane, we have a receptor. See, receptor nothing but it is a specialized protein. It's a protein only. It is a protein. Some proteins are located on the membrane. Some proteins are located on the cytosol. Some proteins are located in the nucleus. You're getting the point. But whatever the hormone it may be, if any hormone wants to show their action, it has to attach to the receptor, because receptor provides a binding site. Receptor provide a binding site for the hormone. We generally call, friends, ligand. What is that? Ligand. So ligand may be anything. Ligand may be a hormone, ligand may be a neurotransmitter, ligand may be a growth factor. But if they want to show their action, they have to come and attach to the receptor. Then only they can show their action. Correct na? Then second, first point is hormones are chemical messenger, they are non-nutritious and they are organic substances. They are always released at low concentration. Most important one, they, in order to show their mechanism, they always uses receptor. Now friends, hormones always travel via blood as the stream of transport. Suppose example, in the plant body water has to flow, it uses xylem. In the plant sugar has to flow, it uses phloem. Similarly, in the body, if the hormone wants to be transported, it requires blood. So hormones always uses blood as their stream of transport. Look into the point. This is a cell which is releasing the hormone. Hormone releasing cell we call secreting cell. The word secretion means release. So this is the cell released the hormone. Now can you see, friends, this is the target cell. So hormone released from here, but it has to reach here. Can you see? Because the targeted cell contain what, friends? Receptor. So this hormone has to come and attach to the receptor, then only hormone can show their action. But hormone cannot jump directly. Now hormone, once it is released from the secreting cell, it enters where? Bloodstream. Correct na? Via blood it is continuously transporting and finally where it is reaching? Targeted cell. Wonderful. So can you see that? It will go to the targeted cell and attaches to where, friends? Attaches to the receptor. Simple. That is, then it will show the action. Now friends, there are two type of hormones are there. One is lipid soluble hormones and another one is water soluble. Always use your brain and try to understand the concepts very correctly. I have used a word, water soluble hormone. Now tell me, Sanjana, water soluble hormone, can it cross the plasma membrane? No. What plasma membrane made up of? Lipids. Very good. Correct na? Lipids are hydrophilic or hydrophobic? This is called as hydrophilic head. This is called hydrophobic. Correct na? Generally, lipids cannot allow the movement of any ion or any molecule. But whatever the ion or molecule that want to cross the membrane, if that is also lipid, it can easily cross it. Correct na? So now the hormone is water soluble. So can it cross the membrane? No. It cannot cross because membrane is lipid. Hormone is water soluble. But what we understood, if in order to show the action, the hormone has to attach to where? Receptor. Otherwise it can't show any function. So the water soluble hormones, instead of entering inside the cell, it will go and attaches to the receptors which are present on the membrane itself. You are getting the point? Since these receptors are present on the surface, we call it them as cell surface receptor. You got the point? And we have some more lipid soluble. They can easily cross the membrane. Correct na? But in order to show their action, they also has to compulsory attaches to the receptor. But where these receptors are present? In why? They can easily cross the membrane, no? No. They can easily cross, they can enter inside the cell. See, ultimately the hormone wants to show their action, which means it has to come inside. But it can't cross. That's why it is using the receptor which is located outside. So it activates this receptor. This receptor is showing the function of this. It won't come inside. But what about lipid soluble? They can easily cross. But in order to show their action, it has to attach to the receptor. But receptor located inside the cytosol or inside the nucleus. We call it them as intracellular receptors. You're getting the point? Intracellular means within the cell. Now all the students, please look into the picture. Okay, let me show you the NCERT picture. It will be more clear to all of you. One second. Fast. So many questions are there in this. Okay. Friends, now you only tell me, look into this picture and answer the question. Now, this is a hormone, correct na? What kind of a hormone it is? Follicle stimulating hormone, the name of the hormone, correct na? This hormone cannot cross the membrane, but it has to show its action mandatorily. So obviously it is using what? Receptor. So this receptor is located where, friends? On the membrane, correct na? Since it is present on the membrane, we use the word cell surface receptor, correct na? It can't enter inside, but it activates receptor. Then receptor activates a variety of responses. You're getting the point? So remember my statements correctly. Most of the hormones show their action with the help of secondary messengers. Secondary messengers are those type of messengers which can easily enter into the nucleus. See friends, let's consider the goal of the FSH hormone is what? Okay. The goal of the FSH hormone is what? Ovarian growth, an example. But FSH cannot cross the membrane. So that's why it attaches to the receptor present on the membrane itself. So what is happening now? So this hormone activates the receptor. This receptor is activating further secondary messengers. That secondary messengers enter into the nucleus and it will show the response of ovarian growth. You're getting? So understand, hormones can also call it as primary messengers. Why we are calling primary messengers? Because they are the one which will come and attaches to the and entire information is present in the hormone only, right? That's why we call Primary messenger. But primary messengers cannot enter inside the nucleus. That's why they are showing their response via secondary messengers. You got the point. So this pathway is called as signal transduction pathway, which means it carrying the information till the nucleus level. Correct, na? So question is very clear. Hydrophilic hormones or water soluble hormones uses cell surface receptor. You are getting the point. So no point of getting confused. See here, based on the nature and mode of action, hormones are derived into two types. Group 1, proteinaceous or peptide hormone. Correct, na? Example, insulin, glucagon. Tell me friends, insulin is what? Protein. Correct, na? Glucagon is what? Protein. We'll take insulin injection, right? Which is what? Protein. Correct, na? So it is the plasma membrane made up of what? Lipids. But insulin is protein. So protein cannot cross the membrane. Obviously it has to use the receptor present on the membrane itself. So the point is very clear. All the water soluble hormones or hydrophilic substances uses cell surface receptor. And how they are going to show their action? Via secondary messengers. Simple point. Okay. Example of secondary messengers are cyclic AMP. Cyclic, it is the name of the secondary messenger. AMP represents adenosine monophosphate. ATP, what is the full form of ATP? It is monophosphate. Next, inositol triphosphate. I don't want you to remember, but remember as it is. Next, so they are all acting like secondary messengers, which are showing the information of primary messengers. No point of confusing. So now, but there are some hormones which are steroidal or lipophilic. In other words, we called hydrophobic. Correct, now friends? We can't call hydrophilic. We called hydrophobic type of the hormones. No point of getting confused here. Correct, na? Now these can easily cross the membrane. Correct, na? Now imagine friends, you take most of the sex hormones. Let's take estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and other thyroid hormones. They can easily cross the membrane. Why? What is the reason? Because they are all made up of cholesterol. All the sex hormones and thyroid hormones, not thyroid hormones, all the sexual hormones and steroidal hormones having cholesterol as their backbone. Cholesterol is what? Lipid. So it can easily cross the membrane. But in order to show their action compulsory, it has to use the receptor. So what are the type of the receptor? Intracellular receptor. Can you see the picture, friends? This is the estrogen hormone. This is lipid bilayer. This is already having cholesterol as their backbone. Easily cross the membrane. Correct, na? So sometimes receptors are present on the cytosol. Sometimes receptors directly present within the nucleus. It entered into the nucleus. Then it will stimulate the gene. Gene undergo transcription, translation, and it show the function. Correct, na? Any function performed by the living cell is under the control of protein. Correct, na? So ultimate goal of this hormone also synthesizing protein. By that protein will show the function of this hormone. You're getting my point correctly. So that is the mechanism of hormone action. So how hormones are classified into two types? How? Based on nature, based on solubility. Whether they are water soluble or whether they are the lipid soluble. Based on the solubility characteristics, we categorized into lipid soluble hormones and water soluble hormone. All of you please focus on that. If you look into the lipid soluble hormones, what do you understand, friends? Steroid hormone, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We'll read all. Corticosteroids, which are going to give rise to cortisol, which is a stress hormone. I'll explain you. These are all what derivatives, friends? Cholesterol derivatives. That's why they can cross the membrane easily. Can you see the picture and tell me? This is the hormone, correct, na? Hormone travel via what? Blood as their stream of transport. Now it came out because it has to enter where? Nucleus. Because it is a lipid soluble hormone. So easily crossed the membrane. Entered into the nucleus and attaches to the receptor present in the nucleus. Allow the DNA to undergo transcription, translation, produce the protein. That protein show the function of hormone. Simple. And what about this? Water soluble hormone. All the water soluble hormones are broadly categorized into three types. Amine hormones, What is the reason we use the word amine hormones, friends? Because it is derived from amino acid. Here also we get the matching type of questions. Next one, peptide, which means the hormones are protein in nature. Best example, insulin, glucagon, all this. Some hormones are called as eicosanoid hormones. What is that? Eicosanoid hormones. I'll explain you that because they are all derived from a lipid named as arachidonic acid. Okay. So examples are prostaglandins and leukotrienes. I'll explain you elaboratively. An example. So these are all amino acid hormones. It is very important in the exam we get a matching question with respect to their amino acids. Okay. So we know epinephrine, norepinephrine. They are also derived from an amino acid named as tyrosine. Okay. Next, dopamine is also derived from tyrosine. About these we will read in the nervous system. Okay. Histamine, very important one, which is released from which cells? Anyone remember? Wonderful, wonderful. It is released from mast cell. So, which is derived from an amino acid histidine. See, what is the specialty of the histamine? Suppose example, we go to a green park. When we go to a green park, some people all of a sudden they'll get sneezing. Their eyes become reddish, nose will be, running nose, they will get continuously sneezing. Why? Because whatever the pollen grains present in the air, they enter inside. They are acting like allergens. What? Allergens. They immediately stimulate the mast cell. Then mast cell releases histamine. Histamine causes constriction of bronchi. Our bronchi is like this. When bronchi is like this, air can flow easily, but what histamine will do, it causes constriction of the bronchi. Then we can't take the air. Then we feel extreme difficulty in the breathing. Correct na? When we come out, when we feel relaxed, somehow we will recover. Sometimes the symptoms will be continued. Then you might taken this medicine multiple times. That time we'll use a drug named as antihistamine. Levocetirizine. Everyone taken cetirizine, right? Small tablet. Okay, what is that? That is antihistamine, which suppress the level of histamine. Anyway, leave it. Next, serotonin. But these are all the hormones which are derived from amino acid. Next, peptide hormone. Insulin, oxytocin, antidiuretic hormone, growth hormone. Remember, they are protein in nature. They are not simply amino acids. They are protein. Protein means made up of more than 10 amino acids, at least. Okay, some proteins are made up of 4 or 5 also, but most of the proteins are more than 10. Insulin we read na, insulin made up of 51 amino acid. Correct na? We read a 10th step of the glycolysis, pyruvate kinase enzyme, made up of 30,000 amino acids. Right? Some are small proteins, some are big protein. And next one is eicosanoids. They are the derivatives of arachidonic acid. Example, prostaglandins and leukotrienes. Prostaglandins and leukotrienes are the chemicals which are involved in the process of inflammation. Okay, we take a drugs, you remember? Paracetamol, everyone know, right? Dolo 650 we will take. What is the action of Dolo 650? It suppresses the level of prostaglandin because we get the headache, which we generally call inflammation, swelling. That can be that is caused by prostaglandin. When we take the painkillers, it will suppress the level of prostaglandin. Then we control from the pain. So they are generally the derivatives of arachidonic acid. Now, but one point is very clear: all are what hormones? Water soluble. So that definitely they have to use the receptor which is only present on the cell surface. So this receptor is called as cell surface receptor. Every student remember, 90% of the water soluble hormones uses a cell surface receptor named as GPCR. What is that? GPCR. G protein coupled receptor. You always remember as the short form. G protein coupled receptor. Every hormone which is water soluble mostly uses GPCR. Now what happened then? So can I say this is the primary messenger? Then primary messenger activating the secondary messenger such as cyclic AMP. Then cyclic AMP enter into the nucleus, finally stimulate the synthesis of a protein, and that protein show their function. Correct na? So this is what, friends, mechanism of action of hormone. Okay, any hormone, whether it's a water soluble or lipid soluble, it has to use what? Receptor. Otherwise, they won't be active at all. Okay, now friends, what are the various type of the hormones that we have to read? Okay. Now understand the concept very correctly, just give me, because I added one basic PPT and I added one advanced level of PPT. So by that you can understand it very clearly. Okay. Let's start with the number one, hypothalamus. Okay. Hypothalamus is the basal part of the diencephalon, that is forebrain, and it regulates wide spectrum of body functions. See, very good question you have to understand. Can I use the word neuron secretes the hormones? What is the function of a neuron, Ayesha? What is the function of neuron? Action potential. Correct na? Neuron is involved in the conduction of the impulse. Correct na? Neurons never involved in synthesizing the hormones. But there are some neurons which are present in the hypothalamus. They are having the ability or capability to synthesize hormones. So those neurons having the ability to synthesize the hormones, we call them as neurosecretory cell. Sometimes we call them as nucleon. Not nucleus, nucleon, which is having the ability to synthesize hormones, or we can call nuclei or nucleon. Okay. Now, very important point. Look into the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is generally releasing two type of hormones, releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. Okay. This is a very broad unit. Once I complete the whole lesson, it becomes easy. Okay. Releasing hormones function, as the name itself indicating, they are having stimulatory function. Inhibiting hormone, inhibitory. You remember we read plant hormones, there are some growth stimulators, growth inhibitor. Abscisic acid is growth inhibitor, rest of them are growth stimulator. Same. Some will stimulate the growth, some will inhibit the growth. But hypothalamus releases both releasing hormones also and inhibiting hormones also. Correct na? Don't get confused over there. Now friends, if you look into the structure of the pituitary gland, see here, the hormones which are released from the hypothalamus reach a pituitary gland. Where? Pituitary gland through a portal circulatory system. You are getting the point. And regulate the functions of anterior pituitary. Okay. Whereas posterior pituitary is under the direct control of neural regulation. Friends, what is the exact meaning of that? No point of getting confused here. This is the pituitary gland. Correct now? You know, right? Pituitary gland having anterior pituitary structurally or anatomically. We have differentiated into anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary will occupy most of the place, or most of the functions are controlled by the anterior pituitary. I can say 75% of the pituitary gland is made up of anterior pituitary, or 75 to 85 you can consider. 15 to 25% of posterior pituitary. Correct na? Anterior pituitary also called as adenohypophysis. Posterior pituitary called as neurohypophysis. Now tell me, why did I use the word neurohypophysis? Now understand the point. This is a hypothalamus. Correct na? Now use the brain very correctly. Hypothalamus contains certain neurons. What neurons? Specialized neurons. We call it as neurosecretory cells. Why? Because they are having the ability to synthesize the hormones. And whatever the hormones synthesized by the neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus, they are reaching where, friends? They are reaching to the anterior also and posterior also. You are getting the point. Whichever is entering into the anterior, they will always move via portal circulatory system. You are getting the point. Whatever the hormones that are synthesized in the hypothalamus, those hormone reaches the anterior pituitary gland via portal circulation. Portal circulation nothing but arteries and veins, that's all. Okay. Sometimes they use the word hypophyseal portal system. The system which connect hypothalamus to anterior pituitary. But posterior pituitary is very different. What is very different? Posterior pituitary, can you see the picture, friends? It is directly connected to the neuron itself. Yes. Correct na? This is called neural regulation. You are getting the point. In other words, I will tell you in a simple words to all of you. Anterior pituitary gland can synthesize the hormones and release the hormones into the blood. But what about the posterior pituitary? It can't synthesize any hormone on its own. It can't synthesize even one hormone also. But what it will do? Whatever the hormones synthesized in the hypothalamus, It will stores in the posterior pituitary, and upon requirement it will release. You're getting my point? Anterior pituitary gland is controlled by hypothalamus. First hypothalamus release some hormones. Those hormones entered into the anterior pituitary via portal system. Then anterior pituitary become active. It will release some more hormones. They will release into the blood. They will show the action. In other words, entire anterior pituitary is under the control of but posterior hypothalamus via portal system. Neuron is not directly connected to the anterior pituitary, but posterior pituitary directly connected to the hypothalamus. Why? Because posterior pituitary won't synthesize even single hormone. Who is synthesizing the hormones?
Neurons.
Neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus, but they are releasing the hormones directly into
Posterior pituitary.
it will store it, it will release it. Best example, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Okay, we'll discuss that very elaboratively. So now once again quickly understand what is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is the basal part of our forebrain. Hypothalamus is the one which control wide varieties of body function. Most of the functions, friends, you read breathing and exchange of gases, right? Respiration control also present in hypothalamus. Correct na? We get vomiting sensation, nausea we called as. That is also controlled by hypothalamus. Our body temperature increases and decreases. That is also controlled by hypothalamus. In other words, a hypothalamus contain variety of regulatory centers. That's why we called it regulates. That's why we call regulatory center. Wide spectrum of body functions. But hypothalamus contain what neurons? Specialized neurons. They are having the ability to synthesize hormones. Correct na? Now don't get confused. Hypothalamus, control everything. Now after the hypothalamus, what is the gland? Pituitary. Because hypothalamus is connected to the pituitary gland. Now pituitary gland is located in a bony cavity called as sella tunica. I will show you in the upcoming slide. And it attaches to the
Hypothalamus.
by a stack or a small what we can say, small bony structure we can say. It look like a bone. That is called stack. So hypothalamus is controlling pituitary gland. Correct na? So pituitary gland anatomically or structurally divided into adenohypophysis, neurohypophysis. So adenohypophysis consists of pars distal is called major, pars intermedia minor. Okay, that classification you don't need to remember. If you can remember, that's fine. Adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. But adenohypophysis is only the major portion of the pituitary gland. So friends, these are the varieties of hormones released by the anterior pituitary gland. So the question is very clear. All of the following hormones are released by the anterior pituitary gland except. That kind of questions we will get it. So growth hormone we'll discuss. Prolactin, here itself we can tell all the functions just like that. Growth hormone controls the growth. Prolactin, milk secretion. Secretion means release. Next, I'm so sorry, it's not milk secretion, milk production. Milk production is maintained by prolactin. Thyroid stimulating hormone, which control basal metabolic rate. We also call it as BMR, and it maintains the level of T3 and T4. I am just giving overview. Adrenocorticotropic hormone releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone both are gonadotropic releasing hormones, act on the testes and ovaries. Melanocyte stimulating hormone, which maintain our sleep cycle and also involved in the pigmentation. So I will discuss every hormone elaboratively. These are the various hormones of what? Anterior pituitary gland. But what is the important point, friends? These are all released from here. But see, I am only anterior pituitary gland. If I want to release all these hormones, someone has to send me the signals. Who will send that signals? Hypothalamus. So hypothalamus send the signals to me first, then I will release this. Correct na? Then next one is what speciality? Neurohypophysis. What I told? It never ever synthesize any hormones. It only stores and it releases whenever there is a requirement. Correct na? But who is secreting? Hypothalamus. Very good. So hypothalamus only secrete two hormones, but they get stored in the or posterior pituitary gland and release whenever there is a requirement. Examples are what, friends? Oxytocin and vasopressin, widely called as antidiuretic hormone. So let's focus on oxytocin. Tell me, more than 10-15 times the question was asked from the oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. All of you please answer, what is the function of oxytocin? What's the function of oxytocin, men? Come on. What is the function of the oxytocin? Easy. Tell me, Sanjana, Ayesha, what is the function of oxytocin? I forgot everyone. Okay. See, I'll tell you two important statements, remember. Oxytocin plays a key role during the childbirth, after the childbirth. Okay. What is the meaning of during the childbirth, how it helps? Okay. See, very good. Contraction of what muscle? Uterine muscle. So don't get confused. Suppose during the labor time or during the delivery time, what happens? Let's consider these are the uterus muscles and these are the vaginal muscles. On the uteral muscles, there are certain receptors. To that receptor, who will come and attach us? Oxytocin. Then oxytocin causes contraction of these muscles. Whenever muscles are getting contracted, it gives unbearable pain. It was understood that when uterine muscles are contracting, it gives unbearable pain. If I want to explain in terms of sound, when we get a tooth pain, we can't control at all. It is hardly 90 decibels. That's all. In terms of a sound I am explaining. But the labor pain is more than 1000 decibels. In other words, if 150 bones fractured in the body at a time, how much pain it will come? The same pain will come when uterus muscles are contracted. Okay. And that pain can be caused by the
Oxytocin.
You're getting the point. So oxytocin plays a key role in the uterine muscle contraction during the during. Then what about the after? See here. See, after childbirth, oxytocin stimulates milk, not production. Production by prolactin. Ejection by see how this will come. Milk ejection from mammary glands in response to suckling action of nursing infant. When the newborn baby starts suckling the nipples of the mammary gland, that is the stimulus. See, no hormone released in the body whenever there is no requirement. Correct or not? You tell me, if the glucose level is very high, then only insulin will release, because it will convert the excess glucose to glycogen. If there is no requirement, there is no release of hormone. Similarly, every hormone released whenever there is a stimulus. So whenever new infant starts suckling the mammary gland, that is the stimulus. Then what this particular oxytocin will do, it eject the milk from mammary gland. Then milk comes out, but not production. Production is done by prolactin. Okay, so oxytocin having two functions. One is during and after the childbirth. During the childbirth, it stimulates the uterine muscle contraction. After the childbirth, it is involved in the ejection of the milk. Correct, na? No point of getting confused. And friends, then the very, very important one, ADH, also called as vasopressin. Now again, remember my statements, no hormone is going to be released whenever there is no requirement. So this also absolutely released whenever there is a requirement. What is that requirement? See, ADH is releasing when there is a high blood osmotic pressure. Now the question is here, why blood osmotic pressure is becoming higher first of all? Because of dehydration, diarrhea, excessive sweating. Tell me friends, what are the three common symptoms of these? Dehydration, loss of fluids. Very good, loss of water fluids, potassium, sodium, chlorine, all are going out. That is what happens in the diarrhea. Excessive sweating, what is going out? Sodium is going out. Correct, na? Salts. So all salts or ions lost from the body. Correct, na? That time, what happens? There are certain receptor. What receptor? Osmoreceptor. Where these osmoreceptors are located? In the hypothalamus only. So what is the condition? Condition is dehydration, diarrhea. Because of that, osmotic pressure become high. Immediately what is getting active? Osmoreceptors becoming active. Now osmoreceptor activate what cells? Neurosecretory cells present in the hypothalamus. Then hypothalamus releases ADH. But then where ADH will come directly? Into the posterior pituitary. It will store over there. Now what is the condition? In these three conditions, there is a loss of ions. So we have to maintain that balance. So what this particular ADH is doing, see here friends, it is acting on kidney, it is acting on skin, it is acting on blood vessel. Now tell me, whenever it is acting on the kidney friends, it decreases urine output and it increases reabsorption. Friends, what is called reabsorption? Suppose through the urine sodium is going out, chlorine is going out, all ions are going out. If I control that urine output, they never go out, they come back to the blood. You are getting my point? That is called reabsorption, not excretion. So what it will do, this ADH act on the kidney and stop the urine output and increase the reabsorption. Then all the ions come back to the blood. Then the blood osmotic pressure becomes normal. You are getting the point? Then it is acting on skin. It decreases the process of perspiration. Perspiration means sweating. Okay, you have to remember the correct words. Perspiration is sweating. It acts on the skin and control the perspiration. No sweating, no sodium release. And it acts on blood vessel. It causes constriction of the blood vessel. Suppose friends, blood vessel is like this. More amount of ions can flow. But blood vessel is like this. Less ions can flow. Correct na? Then they can be reabsorbed back. So it acts on the kidney, decrease the urine output, it acts on the skin, it decreases the perspiration or sweating. It causes constriction or narrowing of blood vessel. Correct na? By that, antidiuretic hormone is going to control what friends? High blood osmotic pressure. Correct na? No point of getting confused. So that is about the number 1 posterior pituitary gland. Okay, very easy to understand. Okay, I'll explain everything very elaboratively. It takes time, but you can't, you don't forget very easily. Just a minute. Because even in the NCERT and books, there is very less information is there, friends. That's why we have to remember them very correctly. Okay, all right. So what are the various hormones we read right now? 2 hormones. What are those 2 hormones? Oxytocin and vasopressin. Correct na? These 2 are released from where? Posterior pituitary. They never release, they just stored and followed by releasing. Okay. Secretion or releasing are the same words. Now, anterior pituitary. What we discussed? 75% of the 75% of the pituitary gland composed of anterior. It is structurally also bigger part compared to the posterior pituitary. So major hormones it will release. See friends, it is releasing thyroid stimulating hormone. We will discuss everything. FSH, LH, prolactin, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. So now let's discuss one by one very elaboratively. Okay, I want you to please look into this picture friends. See here, anterior pituitary, also called as adenohypophysis, forms 75% of the total weight of pituitary gland. Hormone secretion by pituitary is regulated by hypothalamus. Is correct or wrong? Yes. Correct na? This is the direct statement which is asked in the exam. Correct na? It is controlled by hypothalamus. Yes. But whereas posterior pituitary also controlled by hypothalamus, but that is neural regulation. It is blood. You are getting my point correctly. Look into the point. This is what friends? Hypothalamus. Yes. Hypothalamus contain what? Neurosecretory cells. Neurosecretory cell releases what? Hormones. You are getting my point. And that hormones reaches where? Anterior pituitary. How? Can you see friends? These are all arteries and veins which are called as hypophyseal portal system. You are getting my point. But posterior pituitary there is no arteries and veins. Directly neuron is connected to the posterior. That's the fundamental difference between both. Correct na? No point of getting confused. So now let's see. These are all called as hypophyseal portal veins. Okay, it is easy to understand. Okay, now let's understand one by one hormones very elaboratively. Let's start with the number 1, FSH and LH. See friends, FSH and LH both are generally said to be the gonadotropic hormones. Correct na? What is the meaning of a gonadotropin hormones which is acting on gonads? That's why we call as gonadotropin hormones. What are the gonads? We have ovaries in the females and testes in the males, which means whether, see, we have two gonadotropic hormones. One is FSH and one is LH. However, it is acting on the gonads. This is also acting on the gonads. That's why both are said to be gonadotropic hormones. But the way they show their action is entirely different. So again, you have to remember a lot of information here. By that you can answer the questions very easily. Follicle stimulating hormone. What it is doing, friends, tell me, look into the point. So it is acting on the gonads, means it acts on the female also, male also definitely. So in the ovary, look into the point, we will read in the reproduction in the human beings. FSH stimulates development of what? Follicles. So friends, this is the ovary. Okay. On the outer layer of the ovary, we have certain follicular cells, which we call them as ovarian follicular cells. These ovarian follicular cells can be developed by using FSH. And what is the function of these ovarian follicle cells? They are the one majorly involved in the releasing of estrogen, one of the major female sex hormone in the females. Correct, na? So FSH act on the ovarian follicle, stimulate the release of estrogen. So FSH acting on one of the gonad ovary, and it also act on the testis. That is in case of a male. So in case of a testis, FSH stimulates the sperm production, because we get the questions in the matching. Correct, na? Now understand the interesting point. So FSH involved in sperm production, LH is involved in the production of estrogen by stimulating ovarian follicle cells. Now friends, just now I discussed, very important, remember, every hormone has to be regulated. What is the meaning of a regulation? Anything should not be released more than the normal, less than the normal. Best example, our body temperature is 98.4 degree. If body temperature rises, it's a very dangerous condition. If lowers also, we feel extreme cold. So always body temperature has to maintain. Insulin should not be higher, should not be lower, it has to be in a specific level. Same, even in the hormones also should not release more than the normal. If it is releasing more than the normal, we have to regulate them immediately. How can we regulate? By a hormone called as GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. From where it is coming from?
Hypothalamus.
Now see how we can regulate them in a brilliant way. So look into the picture. Okay, don't confuse, it's very easy to understand. So first it is hypothalamus, correct na? Hypothalamus is releasing a hormone. Okay, so hypothalamus contain what cells? Neurosecretory cells. It releasing a hormone named as GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, gonadotropin releasing hormone acting on anterior pituitary gland. It released FSH. Correct, na? Follicle stimulating hormone. Now where it is acting on, friends? Ovaries. Correct or not? And finally it performed the function. Now FSH function is over. Now what should I do? I have to stop the releasing of FSH. Now tell me, how can I stop? I can directly give the signal to
Hypothalamus.
or I can also give the signal to anterior pituitary gland. See, without FSH, ovarian development never happened. Correct, na? So I can give the signal to the anterior pituitary gland not to release FSH, or I can directly send the signal to the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus stops releasing. Then if no GnRH, no FSH. Correct, na? Then everything will be controlled. This is called regulatory pathway. Every hormone in the body has to be regulated compulsory. Correct, na? So that is what FSH hormone. Now the next hormone, which is LH, luteinizing hormone. We will read in the reproductive system a little more elaboratively. It is act on the gonads, again ovaries and testes. Very easy, friends. This LH, in case of a female, involved in the process of ovulation. Ovulation means what? Releasing of egg. So this is the ovary. From the ovary there is a release of egg. Now what happened to this remaining portion? This very good. This entire portion can be converted into corpus luteum. Correct, na? Once the ovary become mature, there is a release of egg. Remaining entire part differentiated into corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is the one which plays a key role in the production of progesterone. Progesterone is one of the major female hormone which is involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics in the female. Smooth voice, breast development, all this, or mammary glands production. Okay, all this by progesterone. Same way, LH act on the male, which means it is involved in the production of testosterone. However, I said that progesterone is the major female sex hormone. Similarly, testosterone is correct, na? Which is involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics such as rough voice, beard, mustache development, chest hair, pubic hair. All these can be mediated by testosterone. That's why both are said to be the female sex hormone and male sex hormone which are involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics. But again, the LH is also under the control of GnRH. GnRH is under the control of hypothalamus. So basically, hypothalamus is the one which is controlling everything. Correct, na? Sometimes it directly involved in the regulation, sometimes it is releasing GnRH. Correct, na? But every time it releases the GnRH will control the FSH and LH. Correct, na? Clear, everyone? No confusions? Because in your NCERT or modules, the information is extremely lower. Okay, that's the reason we have to remember lot of information correctly. Anyway, this PPT also contains vast information and we will read it very elaboratively. Okay. Tell me, so what we read? We read two hormones of the posterior pituitary and we read two hormones of the anterior pituitary. Correct, na? So now let's try to understand, friends, next gland, thyroid gland. Correct, na? If you observe thyroid gland, how it look like, first I'll explain little extra concept, then we'll go back to the NCERT level and we'll read everything. Okay, thyroid gland, when we look like when we look into the thyroid gland, it is exactly looking like a butterfly shaped. Correct, na? That's why we call it as a butterfly shaped gland. Correct, na? Which is exactly present below the voice box. Correct, na? Below the larynx. Now don't get confused, friends. If you look into the structure of the thyroid gland, what you people can observe, thyroid gland contain right lobe, thyroid gland contain
Left lobe.
okay. The right lobe and left lobe can be separated from each other by a structure called as isthmus. Okay. This is not that isthmus present in the ovary, that is different, and this is different. Okay. So, right lobe and left lobe separated with each other by isthmus. And friends, if you observe the thyroid gland very carefully, thyroid gland contain variety of follicles. Can you see that? They are called as follicular cells. What cells? Follicular cells. Those see here, it is a butterfly shaped gland present below the larynx, consists of right and left lobes separated by a isthmus. And both right and left lobe contain a microscopic spherical structures which is called as thyroid follicles, which are made up of follicular cells. Now what is the speciality of these follicular cells? They are the one which are involved in the production of T3 and T4. So what is the full form of the T3? See there? Triiodothyronin. Correct, na? Thyronin it is. Okay. Then T4 is what? Tetraido. That spelling is wrong. Tetraiodothyronin. Widely called as the thyroxine. Okay. Okay. No problem, friends. Please look into it. Because we have to understand why I am explaining the extra information. You can't find it anywhere. So I want you to read and remember compulsory. Then only you can answer, because again reading the same NCERT at the same level doesn't make any difference. Focus on getting more information. So thyroid gland composed of two lobes located on each side of the trachea, and the lobes are interconnected with a thin flap of connective tissue called as isthmus. They will ask which of the following is a connective tissue. That type of question also we will get in the exam. Isthmus. And thyroid gland contain a follicle, sac-like structure we called as follicles made up of follicular cells. Correct na? Each thyroid follicle is composed of follicular cells enclosing a cavity. So can you see this picture, friends, very clearly? See here, understand. This is the voice box and this entirely is thyroid gland. This is the trachea. Okay, don't confuse. In the upcoming slide we will read it. The thyroid gland, between the thyroid gland we are also having parathyroid glands. You can see that. We will see the functions later. There are total 4 parathyroid glands are present. Only 4. Okay. We will understand the function later. So we have 2 hormones T4 and T3. Correct na? Now again the straightforward question in the exam, which is very important for the synthesis of T3 and T4, which is iodine. Iodine is very essential for the normal synthesis. Now you have to understand the deficiency diseases and the functions. Many times question was asked from the diseases, many times. Number 1, it regulates basal metabolic rate. What is called basal metabolic rate? BMR means, see friends, based on the BMR only we will maintain a diet chart. We will prepare, dietitians will prepare the diet chart, right? Based on their metabolic rate only. You might observe, no friends, whenever people are going to the gym, when they want to reduce their weight, what food they will take more? They'll take, very good. They take more proteins, less carbohydrate. Why? Protein improves the metabolism. Okay, when it improves the metabolism, our muscles can be gained and we can lose the weight very easily. You're getting? So that basal metabolic rate can be enhanced by the thyroid hormones. Okay, and it support formation of RBC. See, the formation of RBC we will read in the blood circulation chapter. We call it as, friends, erythropoiesis. Poiesis production, erythro, red blood cell. That production also stimulated by the thyroid gland. And very important, control the metabolism of all. There is a question asked in the NEET. Look into these 3 and slowly answer. Which gives highest energy and which gives fastest energy? Aram se, listen. Highest, no, aram se, listen, aram se. Okay. Which gives highest energy and which gives fastest energy? That's what, first listen, don't give answers. Okay. See, why you are saying highest energy fats? What is the reason?
Highest energy carbohydrates.
No, aram se, listen. Then I'll explain, okay. See, when I use the word highest energy, we always talk in the form of kilocalories. Correct na? See, our body require energy in the form of calories. Correct na? Suppose example, friends, you ate one pizza. An example. Pizza contain, example, more than 1000 to 1500 kilocalories. One pizza contain. Only one pizza. Our human body require, especially according to the Indian standards, we require hardly 2000 calories per day. But if we eat one pizza, we get 1000 to 1500 calories. So we are getting more calories. You are getting the point. So body do not require this many extra. Then what body will do? It will store in the form of fat. You are getting the point. So then proteins. Proteins are also giving rise to the energy in the form of calories. Carbohydrates also same. Compared to the carbohydrates and proteins, fats gives more calories. Hence, highest form of the energy comes from fats. You're getting? When I use the word fastest energy, tell me what body uses? Glucose. Brain uses glucose. Brain wants to control and coordinate, it requires energy, only takes the energy in the form of glucose. Whenever we faint down, whenever we admit in the hospital, first what we get? Saline, which is kind of glucose solution only, because brain requires glucose first. So that glucose generally comes from where? Carbohydrate. Fastest energy or instant energy comes from
Carbohydrates.
highest energy comes from fats. Don't confuse, okay? And entire metabolism is controlled by thyroid hormone. Not only thyroid, insulin and glucagon also will control the all metabolism. We read in the cellular respiration, right? Correct na? Now, very important, maintain water and electrolyte balance. What is the other hormone maintain the water and electrolyte balance? Just now we read na, antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. It also maintains it. Okay, influences the reproductive health. And very, very important point to be remembered for the exam, this thyroid gland releases a protein hormone, thyrocalcitonin. As the name itself indicating, it is the one which is going to control all the level of calcium, because calcium is very important for most of the physiological function. An example, muscle movement. What do we require? Actin and myosin. Actin and myosin require what? Calcium. Blood clotting, what we require? Blood clotting proteins. Every blood clotting protein require calcium. So calcium is one of the most important ion which performs several physiological functions inside the living body, and that calcium level is controlled by thyrocalcitonin. Simply you can remember calcitonin, okay, or TCTR, simply calcitonin. Now friends, what are the major disorders of the thyroid gland? Hypothyroidism and hypo, lower. See, when the sugar level is lower than the normal, then what do we can call it as hypoglycemia, correct na? Glycemia, the level of the sugar which is lower, correct na? We call now hypotension, hypertension is BP, which is more than the normal. But here, whenever there is a deficiency of the iodine in the diet, it causes what? Hypothyroidism. What happens in the hypothyroidism? There is no iodine, correct na? If no iodine, undoubtedly there is no production of T3 and there is no production of T4. Undoubtedly there is an enlargement of the thyroid gland. You are getting the point? Enlargement of the thyroid gland, that condition is called as goitre. Swelling of a thyroid gland or enlargement of the thyroid gland called as goitre. Now don't confuse, here iodine is more or high? Low. Which means, can I say that T3 and T4 are not produced? Correct na? Then low hormone production? Correct na? Metabolic rate will become higher or lower? It will become low. Correct na? Don't get confused. Especially 90% of the cases, most of the pregnant women, in case of them, if the iodine level is lower, it leads to a disease called as cretinism. Okay, the newborn baby will born, but it is the newborn baby is completely mentally retarded or low IQ. Then imagine the importance of the iodine in the body, nothing but salt. Okay, it's very, very important for the proper functioning of the thyroid gland. So, severe deficiency during pregnancy may result in cretinism, stunted growth. Stunted growth means growth is not normal, okay, and low IQ. Okay, now face will become completely puppy face or puffy face. We can say face will be swollen at one side. Okay, thick tongue, dry skin, mental dullness, and delayed puberty. Okay, at a specific interval, women never undergo the maturation. Then hyper means what is happening now? Excess. We are using the word excess. Okay, don't get confused here. Understand, friends. I am drawing here. Consider hypothalamus, correct na? And this is hypophyseal portal system. This is what, friends? Anterior pituitary. This is posterior pituitary. So understand my statements correctly. Again, hypothalamus contains neurons named as neurosecretory cells. They release a hormone named as CRH. I'm so sorry, friends. TRH. What is that? Thyrotropin. Come man. Thyrotropin releasing hormone. What is that? Thyrotropin releasing hormone. That thyrotropin releasing hormone travels via portal system, reaches where? Anterior pituitary gland. Then anterior pituitary gland releases one more hormone named as? Very good. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. This will act on where? Thyroid gland. You are getting my point. Thyroid gland releases T4. Then they control the basal metabolic rate. So if I want to control the T3 and T4 level, I can give the signal to the anterior pituitary gland, by that it stop the production of TSH, or I can directly give the signal to the hypothalamus, it block the production of thyrotropin releasing hormone. So undoubtedly everything is controlled by hypothalamus. But here what is happening, friends? There is excess production of TSH. Now tell me what happens if excess production of TSH? more production of T3 and T4, correct or not? So the level is becoming more than the normal. Obviously it leads to the cancer. Okay, cancer of the thyroid gland. Why? Because the excess hormone synthesis, excess cell division, abnormal cell division, which generally leads to the cancer. Correct na? So symptoms: weight loss, increased heart rate, irritability, protruding eyes, which is called as exophthalmic or widely called as Graves' disease. So Graves' disease is a condition of thyroidism. Correct na? Goitre is the hypothyroidism. Correct na? In the hypothyroidism, what is happening? There is a complete enlargement of the thyroid gland, which is the goitre. Correct na? Hope it's clear for everyone without confusion, right? Okay, I can finish the whole lesson in 40 minutes. I am teaching very slowly, by that you never forget. Okay, so whenever you are solving the questions also, you have to solve in a very brilliant way. Correct na? It is caused by hypersecretion of the thyroid gland. Correct na? Don't confuse. Okay. Once everything is over, then you can automatically understand. I want everyone to answer this very correctly. Why man? A?
Hypothalamus react on pituitary, anterior pituitary, which will release LH and FSH, luteinizing hormone and follicle.
What is the question? GnRH, a hypothalamic hormone needed in the reproduction axon. GnRH is what kind of a hormone? Gonadotrophic releasing hormone. It is released from where? Neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus. So this GnRH travels via hypophyseal portal system and entered into the anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland releases FSH and LH. FSH act on the testis and ovaries, LH also act on the testis and ovaries. Correct na? This is required for estrogen and this is required for progesterone and testosterone. Correct na? So anterior pituitary gland and stimulates secretion of these two. Posterior pituitary gland, wrong, right? Because it is only involved in the oxytocin and vasopressin. Correct na? Or ADH. Again they said that posterior pituitary gland never stimulate the production of LH. Anterior pituitary gland never, it can stimulate the synthesis of LH but not the oxytocin. Correct na? Then the answer is number 1. Okay. Okay, see here. These kind of questions most of the people will answer. Okay, see this kind of questions most of the people won't answer. Because these are all not completely there in the NCERT level. That's why I have given that particular line. Which of the following is amino acid derived hormone? Which is that? Epinephrine. Okay, I don't know because see, now you tell me this line is there in NCERT. Ecdysones. Even in ICSU also these lines are not there. You know, what is ecdysone? You know, in our body we are having a hormones which are involved in the metabolism. Correct na? Example, insulin, glucagon. Similarly, insects also having metabolic hormone. They are called as ecdysones. Okay, they are the metabolic hormones of insects. Estradiol and estradiol are what kind of hormones, friends? Very good. What? Correct, ma? Correct. They are what? Sterol. Correct na? And this one is basically a terpene. Okay, which is also a type of a lipid derivative only. The only amino acid derivative is epinephrine. Okay, protein 1 are what? Protein. Protein hormones are what? Protein hormones. Insulin, glucagon. This is amino acid, not a proteinaceous in nature. Okay, insulin, glucagon, somatostatin. Okay, that we'll read in the next class without fail. Okay, all right. Okay, remaining questions we will read in the okay, last and final question. Answer slowly, slowly. Again, these are all not there in the NCERT. You have to understand in a brilliant way. I want you to compulsory give the answer. Tell me man answer slowly. Again, they have, what is the hint? You know how the steroid hormones act. Aram se, see it. See, you have given the answer less than 20 seconds. That never ever do it. Okay, aram se think. We read now in the starting, that much time I have explained that simple line. Look into this. First one, changing the permeability of the. Do you think hormone can change the permeability of the membrane? Now tell me, hormone can cross the, steroid hormone can cross the plasma membrane or not? Steroidal hormones, definitely they can cross the membrane because they are having cholesterol as their backbone. So this is wrong. Changing the permeability of the cell membrane, correct or not? No one can change the permeability of the cell membrane, correct na? C, most of you said C. Look into the C. Activating P located on the cell membrane. What is the statement I have given you? It is inside. So cyclic AMP show their action in the nucleus. Cyclic AMP present in the cytoplasm and they enter into the nucleus and they activate DNA. You are getting the point. But this is right. Activating CMP, but it is not located on cell membrane. So wrong statement. Correct? Now you see this line. Using what are aquaporins, Kunal? A porine channel, aqua, water. Water channels. How water can enter in the body? Through the aquaporins. They are also present on the membrane. Now you tell me aquaporins can act like secondary messenger. Ma, water channels cannot act like a secondary messenger. I told you na, cyclic AMP, IP3, calcium. They are the secondary messenger. Correct? Aquaporins are not secondary messenger. Wrong. Correct na? So finally what they will do? They will go and bind it to the DNA. Correct or not? Then what I told you, they will stimulate the transcription, translation, then they produce the proteins. Then the proteins show their action. Correct or not? What hormone it is? Steroidal hormone, estrogen. Can it cross the membrane or not? Yes. Obviously it crossed the membrane. Then it entered into the cytosol. From the cytosol it entered the nucleus. Why it entered the nucleus? Because its receptors are present inside the nucleus. What kind of receptor it is? Intracellular receptor. Now it attached. Correct or not? Now can you see that? It is activating DNA with the help of secondary messengers. Then DNA undergo transcription, translation, produce the protein. Got the point? Okay. Don't confuse. Okay. Clear everyone? Okay. You watch completely, man. Okay. In the tomorrow class, I'll ask all the questions. Okay. Clear, right, so far? Okay. It seems to be easy, but you have to answer very correctly. Okay. See, whatever the 4 questions I have shown, hardly 1 or 2 are direct lines of NCERT. Remaining all are applicative based. So you have to understand correctly. Okay. Revise it thoroughly. Okay. I'll upload the PPT also. Compulsory.